June 23, 1945, 9:38 a.m. Mustangs of the 47th Fighter Squadron take off from Iwo Jima. They're on a very long-range mission to strafe an airbase north of Tokyo, helping to eliminate the threat of air attack to American bomber groups. Lieutenant Robert Scamara flies element lead in a flight of 4.
We didn't have to be tight formation, but I flew pretty close for something to do, to keep me awake, because I had trouble keeping awake.
The thing that's exhausting about the Mustang is not that you're strapped in and it's too hot or it's uncomfortable, it's the noise. The noise is just absolutely wears you down.
Once over the mainland, the monotony fades. The 4 Mustangs of Scamara's flight prepare for battle.
We flew up and headed west, expecting to find this airfield loaded with airplanes, and we were going to strafe them. But instead, they were airborne.
7 Japanese fighters are at 9 o'clock low. 17 more are at 7 o'clock high. And one of them is targeting Scamara.
I see these tracers come by past my cockpit, and that's when I broke formation, which was a no-no. You don't break formation, but if somebody's shooting at me, I don't care what the regulation was, I was going to get out of there.
Scamara and wingman John Scanlon break hard left as the sky erupts into a blazing curtain of tracer rounds.
From there on, it was just a big dogfight, one plane after another.
A 0 appears off Scamara's nose. The P-51D is among the first aircraft equipped with a lead computing gun sight, the gyroscopic K-14.
You're supposed to know the wingspan. You guessed 37 feet or whatever, you punch that in, and it was supposed to self-lead it. So all you do is put the dot on the plane.
Scamara's gun sight makes it so a quick burst is all he needs. The wounded 0 limps from the fight. Then, Scamara spots 2 Japanese N-1K fighters, nicknamed Georges, at 9 o'clock low. The N-1K was the most advanced Japanese fighter, posing a real threat to any American in the sky.
I said, if that situation happens, there's 2 planes, I'll head for the leader, you head for his number 2 man. Well, I was closing in on the leader, and he wasn't shooting at the wingman. He dove down, and I took off after the leader. And I caught him in nothing flat and shot him down.
Splash 2 for Scamara. His strategy is to strike fast and move often.
I made short bursts, because one thing, I didn't want to burn up my guns, and the other thing, I didn't have to, because the Japanese planes weren't armored. And they were easy to shoot down. There was no problem there.
Scamara engages several more Japanese fighters, damaging 3.
Seemed like every place I pointed, there was a Japanese plane. It just didn't take much maneuvering to get from one to the other.
But suddenly, tracers streak over his canopy. A Ki-84 Frank, the fastest fighter in the Japanese arsenal, is diving from 6 o'clock high. Scamara brakes hard left. The Frank pilot's mistake is going too fast. He overshoots, pulling up into a climb. Scamara reverses and pitches up, straining to put the Pipper on target.
I remember pulling up, and here was that gun sight was down on my cowling, and I couldn't get enough lead on him, so I practically stalled out.
Scamera manages a short burst before he's forced to dive away. The burning Japanese fighter plummets right past his nose. Splash 3. Scamera scans the sky once more.
I thought one Japanese plane was out ahead of me. As soon as he seen me coming, he split-assed over and dove for the ground. Well, I shouldn't have done it, but I followed.
Scamera dives after the lone Oscar, but he begins to worry about his fuel state.
Well, I said, the heck with him, and I thought, let him go. And I pulled back up, using my airspeed to gain as much altitude as I could.
After all the maneuvering, the other Americans are nowhere to be seen. Scamera is alone. Then he catches sight of something off his left wing.
That's when I noticed Scanlon was still on my wing. I hadn't noticed that up till that time.
Incredibly, Scamera's wingman has stuck with him through every twist and turn. Scamera decides to head to the rally point.
I put him out on mutual support, which you don't talk to. You wiggle your tail, and away he goes, and he flies about a quarter mile parallel to you. So he can watch my tail, I can watch his tail.
They don't get far before Scamera spots trouble behind Scanlon. A 0 right on his tail.
I turned toward him, but I couldn't make it. I yelled at him over the radio to do something. There's a Japanese plane coming down on your tail.
But it's too late. The Zero's 20mm cannons pummel Scanlon's wings. They burst into flames.
He jettisoned his canopy and he bailed out because his cockpit must have been pretty hot by then.
Scamera circles his wingman's parachute, shooting at any Japanese planes that come within gun range.
But I kept firing at them, keeping them clear, and pretty soon 4 of my guns went blank. 2 of them were still firing, but 2 of them had maybe 100 rounds more than the other 4.
There's nothing more he can do for his wingman. Scamera breaks off and heads for home. He lands back on Iwo Jima after 8 hours and 17 minutes with 6 empty guns. Remarkably, his internal fuel tank still has 54 gallons of fuel. Scamera is credited with 3 kills and 4 damaged. Tragically, John Scanlon would not make it home alive.
Maybe 3 years later that I happened to notice this little article in the newspaper, 2 or 3 women that were acquitted of war crimes. And their war crime was releasing Scanlon from the infirmary to a civilian mob that was demanding them to release him to them. Well, they released him to him and they lynched him. And that's how I found out what happened to him. I'd have gladly given them back their 3 victories just if I could have saved John, but it didn't happen that way.
The Mustang made a significant contribution to the Allied victory in the Pacific, sweeping the skies of most Japanese fighters that threatened American bombers.